welcome back to Media7, where I'm discussing the Rugby World Cup and the media with Martin Snedden, Richard Boock and Richard Becht. Martin, we talked before the break about the coverage, but the people who do the coverage, of course, are journalists. How many journalists are you expecting, and how are you going to look after them?
Well, they'll fly in first class and five-star hotels all paid for by us. Best seats in the ground, which they don't pay for, costs us a fortune. We reckon there'll probably be, we're not sure, but more than 1,000. And if you think about that, they're here for 45 days, maybe a bit longer. They watch 90 minutes of rugby every so often. They'll write a fair bit about that, but they're going to spend a hell of a lot of time looking at us, at our country, and sending back a whole lot of stuff about us. So it's a huge opportunity and a huge risk.
So does that mean that you work with other agencies? Are you working with Tourism New Zealand?
Yeah, with all those government agencies and with the local regional tourism organisations, and there's a whole network right across the country, and all of us know damn well that we've got to look after the media. And so you'll be okay. Is
this, in some respect, is this an element where the government's role, because they are the other stakeholder in the company that's putting on the tournament?
No, they know what's going on, but they leave it to us to coordinate that, and so they need to. We've been working, all the media that have been coming in the last 2 or 3 years with the Tri-Nations games and the other touring games. We pull them into our office and give them a few Heinekens and tell them the story and just get them prepped for.
So are they all going to have good broadband? Are they all going to have Wi-Fi at the stadiums?
Totally.
Right.
I think so.
You're very confident. So you've fixed New Zealand's broadband problem. That's great. Richard Boock and Becht, I mean, you've reported on these big tournaments before. What's it like as a journalist at these things? Because you are one amongst 1,000, aren't you?
Yeah, look, it is very intense, and you have to, get all your stall in order and make sure you do the right things and are well organised and things. But I don't see any reason why New Zealand shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a smooth experience for all the journalists. As Martin said, we've got enough technology here. We've got the transport infrastructure. We've got the accommodation infrastructure. It can't be any worse than, well, it should be better than most places. It can go wrong though if tournament organisers and venue locations start to try to exploit the opportunity. And in the West Indies in 2007 for the World Cup, you couldn't get within 5 kilometres of any venue. You had to park your car, and there were taxis arranged that would take you to the ground and back for a small fee. And there were sort of rorts going on like that all the time. The hotels were all booked out in advance, and then when we wanted to book a room, it would be charged an exorbitant price. So that sort of thing happened all over the place. Now, I don't think that would happen.
That's bad for the image of the country, isn't it?
It just tore the World Cup apart.
Have you had experiences like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to go to Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, Rugby World Cup, and went to the Rugby World Cup in South Africa '95, the one that Invictus is about, which I haven't yet seen, but I wouldn't mind seeing, because it's a great experience in your life to be in that country at that time with Mandela and all of that. So, I mean, I remember that event for that as much as anything. But there are, serious logistical issues at different times in terms of getting to stadiums, like Richard says, getting in them, getting to places you want to get to, where you think you should be. What it requires is an enormous amount of tolerance and patience, and I know that's the one thing when I've been involved with teams at Olympic Games particularly, but Commonwealth Games as well. For goodness sake, just take it easy. Stay calm when you get near any security people, because they are the people that'll fire you up every time. That's like road rage at the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, Rugby World Cup, Cricket World Cup.
I still get the feeling that there's going to be people that Martin won't be able to keep happy.
There will be. Those British journalists will something will get up their nose very easily, and they'll be histrionic about abusing them.
You're so agreeable. Just to conclude, I get the impression from people I've talked to that there is a certain amount riding on this tournament, because it's the first one back since a recession and a crash in the value of sports rights. So do you think that there will be some eyes on this tournament?
Yeah, there will be.
In that respect?
And we are desperately lucky that this tournament wasn't happening in 2009 and probably even 2010. At least, hopefully the economic situation is gradually improving enough that in 18 months' time that there'll be enough people around that can afford our tickets to the final. We've noticed that the corporate hospitality sales, which started about 4 or 5 weeks ago, have gone really well. I mean,
I've heard this, yes.
They're selling boxes at Eden Park for the 9 games that have been played there for Rugby World Cup. The total cost of that's about 425 grand plus just, I think. So that's a good sign.
And of course you've got the British terrestrial TV rights, which are one of the biggest single chunks of income, have not yet been put up for tender. And I understand that's because IMG are waiting until that market's right.
That could be, and they were definitely waiting on where the next World Cup would go, and the fact that it went to England means they've got an opportunity there to couple the rights for those. But again, you know, that's not rights that are owned by us. That's the IRB's.
One final question. You're picking the All Blacks this time?
Yes.
Oh, you took too long.
Too long?
Too long.
Probably. But I dare say there's immense pressure on them this time. There's just every World Cup just builds and builds and builds for the All Blacks, and they've tried to redesign the way they go about it.
And there's no way you could say no.
It's not all about the All Blacks, Russell.
I'll take that as a yes. That concludes this discussion. Thank you to Martin Snedden, Richard Boock and Richard Becht. We move now to a different kind of game. Jose Barbosa gets his geek on for the Global Game Jam.
I am Batman. I am the Knight. Hello, if you're anything like me, although to be honest I can't really see why you would be, you probably like a bit of the old video games. Ah!
Yep, video games are great. Games like these are really just the top shelf of the freezer. Underneath, and often ignored, except by specialist media, is a culture of DIY hobbyist developers. Recently, enthusiasts around the country took part in a unique competition called the Global Game Jam.
You come along, you get thrown into a team of people that you don't necessarily know, you get given a theme, and you've got to make a game in a weekend. And there were at least 2 teams who had hardware crashes within about 2 or 3 hours of the deadline.
Oh, I was just absolutely spewing. I really wanted to make a game about a witch on a broomstick that shoots things, so I decided that I would just, I wouldn't compromise my artistic vision, and I would just sit down and do it.
I can't finish a jigsaw in 48 hours, let alone program a functioning computer game, yet some real statements in design were made. For example, Tiramisu uses a colour pencil and packing box aesthetic to create a blend of the analogue and digital.
With the artist we had, Jeff Noose, he hand drew all his art and then scanned it in. A little big planner, that was a bit of an influence for us all. So we wanted to bring that style across, kind of mixing 2D with 3D.
But other attempts were more rudimentary.
My game's called Return to Happy Town. You start off in a happy place, you find the cake, it's more dangerous than you expected, and I guess the game changes a bit.
Essentially it just gets more violent.
Yes, it does get more violent.
Now, one of my favourite games that was created during the Games Jam weekend is actually a game that was made in Australia.
It's called G. Niley. It uses your voice to control the game.
Go away! Piss off! Off! And I'm through the maze.
It's maybe a little too easy to poke fun and dredge up the old stereotype of computer nerds as inarticulate shut-ins. Such minds produce real innovation. Minds like Kevin Toms, who single-handedly created a genre of sports games in 1982 with Football Manager.
Most of the people I was developing with at the time or were building businesses with, they'd never done it before. Most of them were actually people who wrote games themselves. They weren't business people, and they were learning as they were going.
It's like Jesus never said, the geeks shall inherit the earth.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? I'm glad they're getting something because they had a hell of a time.
Jose Barbosa there. And that's our show. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook and the web. Thanks again to our guests and to you for watching. We'll be back with Media7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.